we say hello, good morning to Claire Muldoon and Pat Sharp. And
You doing?
Morning.
Hi.
These are the newspapers that they are going to be reviewing today. We begin with the Telegraph.
And that leads with President Zelensky could fall, the paper says, as the price of peace, as Trump says elections must be held in Ukraine to bring an end to the war.
Times reports that British Typhoons may help to keep the peace in Ukraine. The fighter jets could avert the need for troops.
The Daily Express leads with furious farmers claiming their blood was boiling at the collapse of talks over inheritance tax changes.
Metro, debt-ridden Thames Water, get this, is getting a bailout, £3 billion. Why?
And The Sun leads with the Duchess of Sussex facing accusations of copyright for her new lifestyle logo.
Well, there we go. Right, where are we going to begin?
Should we start with Jonathan Reynolds,
Yeah.
Pat? And this is about he's being accused of fabricating his CV.
Yes, now I'm thinking about how many bits I could have added to mine over the years, but I suppose being...
And wish you had.
Don't we all? Being just a humble DJ, I don't think, I would have got away with too much. But at the end of the day, what was he actually doing? Was he practising as a solicitor?
He was training to be a solicitor, yeah. Okay. And therefore he would have been practising. He would have done solicitorial work.
Soliciting. Of a kind.
Yeah.
Yes, there we are. Lawyering. So, this all goes back to Rachel Reeves and what we can and can't do with our CVs. A lot of people, apparently, with their CVs have not updated them for many years anyway. So there are things on there that perhaps would have been a bit of poetic licence. So maybe...
Do you not think this gives rise, though, to the integrity of the government? And I think that's the key thing.
That's the thing.
I think that is the thing. We all, perhaps, might embellish or, add a wee bit extra onto our CV. Can you say curriculum vitae? Can you make that any longer? I'm not sure. But when you look through CVs as an employer, all you want to see is one page anyway. Why on earth would you want to make things up?
But why would he need to make it up?
That's my point as well.
And Rachel Reeves, I sort of look and I think, you're important people doing important jobs, live on it. No one's thinking back to saying, oh, yeah, you were a solicitor once. I just think, why bother? Why bother even mentioning
Well,
it?
I think with his perspective, with his job, I think Jonathan Reynolds, as Business Secretary, really has to be a beacon of fortitude, of resilience and of integrity. And I think by stories like this being leaked, I think that kind of ebbs it away, kind of knocks it off a bit. It's not like he said he was a brain surgeon, but still, he was training to be a solicitor without a law degree. Why then would you put that in if you weren't?
Has he got to where he is by adding that bit anyway? Perhaps not. He did it anyway, so maybe...
You could say the same about Rachel Reeves, couldn't you? I mean, she was an economist at the Bank of England, but she was an economist for 5 years rather than 10. I mean, what's the need for the embellishment? But it's a question of trust, isn't it? Because
yes.
How can you trust the Cabinet to run the country if they can't be honest about their work experience?
OK. Let's talk about women in the Army, and the head of the Army has written to senior officers condemning appalling and shameful behaviour as more than 1,000 women share stories of abuse. And the front page of the papers has got a picture of, tell us...
This is Jaisley Beck, who's a young woman who took her own life after horrific treatment. Claire, you've got this story, haven't you, in the Times?
I have, and it is absolutely awful. It's, again, women at the hands of the misogynistic men and the patriarchy. But I've got a thing about women in the army. I don't think men and women should serve together in the army. I think that if you want to go into the army as a woman, I think you have to realise that it's going to be different for you. Not saying, and I'm not minimising anything of the abuse that has gone on, but you're physically different in so many ways from men.
But Claire,
therefore, your experience is going to be different.
You could say the same, and I'm not disagreeing with you. You could say the same for police officers, for instance.
Yes.
Or people in the ambulance service or fire service.
There's an issue of morale here. There really is, both in terms of your physical, sexual morale, but also your actual ability to work mentally with members of the opposite sex. And obviously, I'm not saying...
It's different, Claire. I used to watch a lot of this with the police, and in Northern Ireland you had Land Rovers and there was 4 officers in the back plus 1 woman.
Yeah.
And I could hear it all the time. I would hear the way she was spoken to or whatever. And the way women had to deal with it, Pat, was to laugh along with it or treat it or whatever, and they become quite blokey.
Banter.
Yeah.
Not a good word.
No.
But so back to this point, this poor girl, this child, she was 19, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
You know, she was put through the most horrific crimes, the highest level of sexual abuse, of mental abuse than I think any woman could do. And she took her own life because of it. This is systemic abuse within the army. And it's all very well the head of the army saying, we need to tackle this, we need to be above board with it. We shouldn't have to even be having this discussion, for heaven's sake.
That's because you're saying keep them apart.
Yes.
And you think that's the only way ahead for this?
Well, how many more times have we got to read the fact that women are being persecuted, women are being killed, women are being horrifically abused at the hands of men all the time? So what is the answer? I don't know. Women want to serve in the army, they must be allowed to serve in the army. But I don't think it's good for morale for women and men to serve alongside each other.
It doesn't get to the root of the problem, though, does it, Claire, in terms of the behaviour of these men?
No, but it's behaviour of men intrinsically. Bad men exist. Bad men exist more than you think.
But this appears to be an endemic.
I agree with you more than you think. I know what way I look towards women and how I treat women and whatever, and I don't see any difference. You know, you're my friend.
Yes.
You're Claire.
Yes.
I don't see you're Claire, a woman or whatever.
No.
But I then come across, and I see this all the time, language that men, and particularly professionals, you know, people who are like, well, it's hard to say, but people who have to work with the body, you know, often. And I think they speak in inappropriate ways. I've heard it, I've seen it, I've witnessed it. And it's not right. There is an abuse away forward. Do you find some men speak to you in an inappropriate way?
Yeah, I think all women can relate to that. Yeah. It does happen, sadly. But this is really the most alarming story. I mean, 1,000 women have now come out and spoken about their experience.
And I think that's a drop in the ocean.
And
I really do.
Looking at some of this, and I won't be able to share very much because we're on a breakfast programme, of course, but looking at these stories of abuse that have been shared in the Times today, they all have really similar themes, don't they? Women having to lock themselves in bedrooms away from men who are essentially preying on them.
I think men in the army and men all over prey on people. It's not just women. I think you'll find if you're gay in the army, I think gay men will have similar stories to tell.
Okay, well, if you've got a story to tell, have your say, get in touch with us this morning and we will reflect that. Pat and Claire will be back very shortly after we take a break.